I had a meeting with Karen Winkler. We spoke for about 30 minutes, and then I asked her if she could contact her son John Carter and get him to meet with me. John was going to work, but he agreed to meet with me for a few minutes before he went in. We met at the McDonald's right next to his employer that he was working for at that time. Karen asked us to give her about 10 minutes before leaving the hotel conference room. She wanted to speak to John first. After arriving, I spoke to John about Ricky Fields. When I mentioned Rick's name, John immediately started laughing. I asked John about the claims Ricky made, and he denied any of it happened. Now, just before meeting with Karen, I spoke to a band member that Ricky said was there. John supposedly threw Mike Palmerton out of his house. That band member said John never threw Mike out. This band member was not a part of John and Katelyn's inner circle, so he really wouldn't have any reason to lie. When I told John and Karen when Rick said this incident happened, Karen said John had a cast on his leg because he broke his leg just a couple of days before Ricky claimed this incident happened. Karen still had the paperwork from the hospital and offered to show it to me. John Carter told me that Rick accepted cocaine from the neighbor drug dealer. We know him as Lance. And then he disappeared. Lance took the money from John because Rick was John's friend, and John explained that he kept Rick's bass guitar for collateral until he was reimbursed for the drug purchase Rick made. John still has Rick's bass. In fact, I'm going to post a picture of that bass on the Gone at 21 Facebook page. It looks like Ricky's memory isn't matching up with everyone else's. But Rick interjected himself into this case in a major way. Why? Was it for the reward money? Is it to get Mike Palmerton back for some bad blood they had between them? Is Rick's role bigger than just a witness? On this second trip to Ohio, I was planning to find out. You're listening to Gone at 21, The Investigation. Day after I arrived in Ohio, I called Ricky Fields and inquired if he was back home from New Jersey. I didn't say anything about being in Ohio at first. He said he was back in Indiana and he was relaxing at home, hanging out with his family. He went on and on about being happy he was home. I then informed him I was in Ohio and planning to drive to Indiana to interview him. He quickly said, "I'm moving my family to Nevada as we speak. We're already on the road." I confirmed this was not true because I spoke to Rick's former fiancée about a month ago, who said they actually moved to Tennessee, not Nevada. That's not even in the right direction. Obviously, someone was really trying to avoid me and law enforcement. Before speaking to Mike Palmerton, I re-interviewed John Palmerton, Mike's brother. John Palmerton was actually one of the first to arrive at Katelyn's house after John Carter discovered she was missing. Here is John Palmerton, one of John Carter's best friends, with what he remembers about that day.
I'll kind of start from the beginning when we got there, just so to try and not get it too confusing.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, John called Katie, because, her and Katelyn talked on a regular basis, wanted to know if she had heard from her that day, and she hadn't. But we turned around and came back, and talked to Johnny. Said he had looked through, didn't see anything that looked too out of sorts, and kind of like tried to, keep him calm. Mm-hmm. And then after a little bit, he was like, "Oh, well, I need to go back to Papa John's and return my money, my bank or whatever." Okay. For the day, because he was like in the middle of a delivery, I think. When he'd come there, like he'd drop off the food, came to the house to see if just check on the situation. Right. After we got in there, like a little bit after that, he had called Papa John's like, "Hey, I'm gonna come bring back the money, and then I'm done for the day. I'm coming back here to figure out what's going on." Okay. So he went and dropped out his bank, and while he was gone, me and Katie had taken a look through the apartment. At first, we just kind of looked in the living room, and then we went upstairs and. Things looked a little disorganized in the room, but I hadn't seen a room before to know if it was different from any other time. But besides that, like, I don't know, we checked closets and stuff like that because he was just like, you never know. Someone might see him happy and off himself, et cetera, so on, Right. So, made sure we checked every little corner. Okay. Now, tell me about the dog. Where was the dog? At that time, he had already been chained up outside. Because I'm pretty sure, just from my guess, John had gotten there, looked through real quick, and then brought Murphy outside before we had gotten there, or around the time we got there.
Katie said the dog was in the bathroom.
Was he still in the bathroom when we got there? I thought he was outside when we got there, but I might be wrong.
Okay. Yeah, Katie said the dog was still in the bathroom because she saw the dog in the bathroom. And yeah, so I don't know.
I know at one point he ended up chained up outside, but
you don't remember that part?
As far as the exact order.
Imagine yourself walking in and then going through and just kind of picture that and see if you could remember that way.
Yeah, I don't remember the dog being in the bathroom.
Okay.
But as far as, complete continuity of my memory.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So the dog is chained up outside, and then what? John goes to drop his money off. What happened? You said you went inside, you looked around, you came back outside, and then John shows back up. We did our look through and then sat at the round, outside picnic type table that was out back. Okay.
Sat there and probably smoked a bowl.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, what? Who else showed up? Wait, so you smoked a bowl there?
Yeah, while we were waiting for John, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we smoked while we were sitting there waiting. Okay. Because we were about to smoke in the car when he had called. So I think we just kind of picked up where we left off while we were sitting there waiting.
Were you guys thinking maybe she just was out with a friend or something at that point, or did you think she was actually seriously missing?
At first, we thought it was just, something to do. Like maybe she came home and went to the store up the street or something. Because, there's so many places within a reasonable walking distance.
Right. Yeah, there is. You even have a Dollar General up the street? Or?
Yeah, it was before Dollar General was there.
It was.
Yeah, but there's the Marathon Station. There's Lowville's right up the street.
Okay. So when John gets back, What did y'all discuss before I think he was on the phone with police on the way back. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was on the way back because if I remember right, it was when he got out of the car, he was still on the phone.
Okay. So John gets back, and then what happens from that point? What does John say? I know he's got to be worried, or was he just kind of stoic? Because sometimes.
Oh yeah, he was doing the pacing around and kind of doing this thing on occasion. I kind of sort out in his head what the hell is going on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then when the police get there, or who gets there first, the police or David Markham?
Trying to think. I'm pretty sure the cop literally got there maybe 30 seconds before Dave. I think the cop had walked over to us as Dave was parking.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember being pretty close.
Okay. What did the cop do when was it he or she?
It was just she was the first person to respond.
What did she do when she got there?
Well, first she just took some basic information of us, like none of you have heard from her, like do you have any contact information, places we can call, etc. So on like David's Bridal and stuff like that. And then she started asking John more questions. I think it was either, I don't remember if it was at this point they had to start doing it or when the other two officers got there, but at one point they had me, Katie, and Matt Rocamp, when he had arrived on the scene, start writing down like a list of people's names and numbers of like anyone that would have contact with her.
Who did you write?
I think we had Katie actually write the whole list, but we just start, like me and Matt would just spout off names as they came to mind. Like, obviously start off with our cell phones, like this person, this, like start off easy and then start trying to think, who do we not have on our phones?
Right. Who did y'all come up with? I mean, the first couple that just come to your mind.
Probably was, like, I think I remember now. Probably would have been someone like Amber Morgan, like not because it's A's, but someone that she was close to.
Yeah, Amber.
Get it?
Was Mary on there? Mary Halloran?
Probably. Like, I don't think I had her number, but Katie probably would have.
Yeah. And then maybe Ryan and Heather.
Yeah, they're probably on the list. Michelle Feist. And I'm pretty sure we filled up the whole page. Like,
All right, and then you gave them the list, and were they talking to John when you guys were doing that?
Yeah, well, they talked to John, more than the rest of us while we were there, as far as, like, trying to gather information.
Right.
Because, Dave had been living elsewhere, et cetera, so it wasn't like he was there on a regular basis.
Right.
Yeah, they asked some basic questions like anything seem out of sort. Was the door locked? Which I guess John had put the key in and opened the door without checking to see if it was locked. Yeah, it was like his first response was to just do that and open the handle, so he didn't actually check it to know if it had been locked prior.
Who knew that was going to be a big question, Did the police go in, and how long were the police in the house, or did they go in the house?
They did go into the house, and they're probably in there for a good 20 minutes, just looking around at stuff. Like, they didn't take any tools or anything with them that I could think of. Pretty sure they just walked in there with flashlights.
Okay.
Yeah, flashlights and gloves.
So there was no fingerprint kit, like for latent prints, where they dust for the prints, or?
Yeah, they didn't do anything like that.
Did they take pictures?
I think they did. I'm not completely sure.
Okay.
I thought it was really dumb that it took them like another 2 days to actually secure the scene.
Yeah. Okay, so when the police left, what did John do? I mean,
they had me, the four of us, me, John, Katie, Matt, meet them at the police station, within the next hour, and actually got like formal statements from each one of us surrounding the circumstances.
Did you talk to the police any time after that time, the first time?
Yeah, Detective Bales had called us in for another interview later on.
Okay, you just had an interview with him?
Yeah. It was mainly just a re-rundown of what happened that day as far as we could recollect. Anything before or after that might be pertinent. And then I guess someone said something about mushrooms. And he was like asking about mushrooms, like, I don't know, maybe she ate a bad batch and walked off somewhere. Like, I don't think that's your problem here. I mean, personally, I've done mushrooms plenty of times, so I just don't think that that's how it was going to go down.
Okay. But you can get a bad batch with, if it's not cleaned and...
Yeah, but I mean, like, it wouldn't have been, like...
It wouldn't have been she walked off.
Yeah, she wouldn't... Yeah.
She wouldn't have walked off. Someone would have carried her off.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been, that she just decided to walk into the woods and never return.
No, she would have been guided by somebody or... Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it wasn't just that she ate a bad mushroom and walked away.
Right. All right, that time with Bales, was that the last time you spoke with the police?
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was only those 2 times, which, I interviewed with Bales, I think they had interviewed with different officers. Or at least I'm pretty sure Katie did. I just remember both her and Matt being not too happy after their interviews. I guess the investigators were assholes.
They're assholes to him.
Yeah, Bales is really nice to me.
You heard the name Detective Bales. He was filling in for Detective Irving while she was on maternity leave. John Palmerton goes on to tell me about an apartment that John, Carter, and he had together in Cincinnati around 2008, and about Rick Fields, cocaine, and the bass guitar saga. One thing I noticed about Rick Fields was he had numerous Facebook pages for himself. John Palmerton even claims Rick made a Facebook page for him.
Years ago, back around 2008, when me and John Carter lived in Cincinnati together, Rick, I guess, apparently got a big front of cocaine off of a dealer that lived in our area and never paid him. So we had
Abe or
Abe. I take it John Carter told you this story. Where all of a sudden people come to the door like, we need that money. People are about to get hostile about it, like, son of a bitch. And we couldn't, didn't hear from Rick for a long time after that.
Did he ever pay it off? Or?
I think John Carter got some of the money off of him because he literally caught him in the line at a gas station cashing his paycheck or something like that. I think that's the only time he got anything from him. And there was a bass that Rick had left, a studio bass, decent bass guitar. They left at our apartment that John kept as collateral, basically.
There you go.
And I think he did end up eventually selling it. I don't think he gave it back ever because he never got the money.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. So he was a crackhead or cocaine.
Yeah, apparently he really liked cocaine, or at least at that particular time. But yeah, he's got these bullshit fabrications. He made a fake Facebook of me at one time and had sent Heather's ex, Scott, a message posing as me. I forget, saying something about heroin. Using heroin or something like that, trying to claim that I had seen Heather doing this, that, or the other. But, that wasn't me. I never had a Facebook of my own. Okay. Yeah, I don't like the Facebook culture, so that's why I stay away from it. But, yeah, Mike ends up hitting me up Rick made a fake Facebook of you because I know you're not the one that sent Scott this message.
Did John tell you I asked him that, or he told me that? Because I literally talked to John, 3 days ago? Yeah. And he told me the exact same story you told me about the cocaine.
Yeah.
Did he tell you that?
No, I didn't know you talked to John this round.
I gotcha.
John Palmerton did agree to come back the next day and take a polygraph. I then spoke to Michael Palmerton the same day, and he answers Ricky's claims and gives more insight as to why Ricky might be making these claims in the first place. By the way, my recorder was picking up interference, so you will hear a clicking sound coming and going throughout Mike's interview. You will also hear hydraulics from an elevator. I was conducting this interview in my hotel conference room, and the elevator mechanical room was located in that area. You will be able to hear what we are saying, and I apologize for those noises, but like I said in the episode before the intro, my very first episode, this is a real investigation and a raw podcast.
I guess the most recent reason that he would be angry with me is that, he got a hold of me on Facebook. I still have a record of that, and he basically said, I haven't seen you guys for years. I was on a bunch of drugs back then, and, granted, I'm a former drug addict myself. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I am. But yeah, he said, I told a whole bunch of bullshit lies about you, because he did. He tried to, he said to my girlfriend who I was living with at the time that I'd stolen a whole bunch of shit from her that I didn't steal, and that he was going to help her file a police report against me. She got all psychotic on me and started bothering me while I was at work. Just like, I don't know.
Who was that?
That would be Asia.
Okay.
But all right. So he told all those lies for no reason. He even created a false Facebook for my brother, who hates Facebook, doesn't use it. Created a false Facebook and started spreading a whole bunch of lies about me. So that's why we hadn't spoken in years, me and Rick. So all of a sudden, Rick shows up in the wintertime, and
this was in 2011 time frame.
2011 time frame.
Yeah, when Katelyn left, or
no?
Okay, this is after that.
The incident with him telling all of those lies. I mean, I couldn't even tell you where Rick was back then. I don't even think he was in town, or if he was disappearing, because that's pretty much what he does. He goes from one state, one place to the other. Usually, like I said, he's from the Pennsylvania area. Mm-hmm. He'll come down here, he'll fuck over everybody where he lives, move somewhere else,
fuck him over
here, and then go to Colorado. That seems to be his little trifecta, if you will. Mm-hmm. Colorado, Pennsylvania, Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. So, that's pretty much what he does. That's his continuous cycle. Anyway, Rick was back in town or whatever, and he got a hold of me on Facebook, and he said, hey man, one of the things, really just kissing my ass and all that, one of the things I always admired about you was that you always seemed like you would be capable of anything, like really buttering me up. And he said, I've been clean for 2 years, offered to get me a job working in telecommunications with him, which I would have been happy to take because he was offering me a large sum of money to work with whatever company you said he was going to work for. That was starting to go, and it was actually, I think, February 15th, he was supposed to get a hold of me. This was of this year.
Okay.
He was supposed to get a hold of me to go to some seminar. He disappeared off the face of the planet, and I sent him a message basically saying, like, hey, dude, did you relapse or something? Because he admitted to me that he had messed up and, done some of that. Mm-hmm. Like,
heroin?
Yeah, heroin. He admitted to me that he had relapsed, but, he was doing better again. But it was February 15th, I finally got to the, I'd asked him, basically, did you relapse? Because you've done the one thing, the absolute one thing that you promised me you wouldn't do, which is what he does, and that would be disappear off the face of the goddamn planet and leave me hanging. And I told him, like, well, thank God I already have another job lined up, because I was unemployed for a brief period there. Mm-hmm. I told him, like, oh yeah, it didn't screw me over that bad because I had another job lined up, but I'm just worried about you, because, this is indicative of drug use, of a relapse into drug use. I still heard nothing, and then around March 3rd, I finally went off, because this would be like the third or fourth time. This is what this man does. Mm-hmm. And, especially after he buttered me up and kissed my ass like that, it pissed me off.
So that was this year?
That was this year.
Okay.
So, all right, so that was around February 15th is when I sent him that message, and it was like early March I sent him a message basically saying, like, you backstabbing fucking piece of shit. I'm never going to speak to you ever again. And still never heard anything back from him, and, sure enough, the next thing I hear anything about him, it's this. So he's up to his old tricks.
Yeah. Let's do this real quick.
Sure.
And then I'm going to ask you some specific questions that came from the Ricky Field interview.
Sure.
The night Katelyn went missing, Saturday into Sunday type thing, what were you doing? Where were you at?
I honestly don't remember, because I was on enough heroin at the time that I just wasn't paying attention. I just, didn't care. I was probably, I actually talked to my mom briefly before I came down here, and she said, well, you were with me. I was like, I still don't really remember what I was doing, but I'm sure that I was at my house, which, as you probably know, was right down the street from where she disappeared.
There. Nice house.
Yeah, it is. But, so there was that.
So you don't really remember what you were doing?
I don't remember exactly what I was doing. I do, I could tell you that I got a phone call from John the next day, like, hey, it was either the next day or the day after, like, I got these flyers, Katelyn's missing, she hasn't shown up to work, which, if you knew her, that's That's not something she did.
Yeah.
I wound up I was working at a barber shop at the time. I do know for a fact I worked that day, the night of the Sacred Heart Festival. But I posted up a flyer at the barber shop I was working at. The following, it had to have been a Monday because I was off work. Yeah, that's pretty well it. And unfortunately,
let me ask you this: do you remember going through Kroger parking lot and possibly hitting somebody or something with your car?
In Kroger parking lot?
Yeah, that night. Saturday night. No. Did you go? Do you remember going to Ricky's house around that time? Ricky's apartment?
No.
No? Don't remember hitting on his stepmom, or not stepmom, his mother-in-law, as you said?
Mother-in-law?
Yeah.
I do remember an incident from the past where she had, hit on me, but no. No, and even then, that particular incident was, years before Katelyn went missing. That was around 2008, and he was actually living in town then, off of Hamilton Avenue at those apartments there on the left by Sharks and Shooters. I don't know what it's called now, but I don't think it's Sharks anymore.
The fight with you and Heather Hapney. Heather said it happened years before Katelyn went missing at Ricky's house.
Oh, we did. Well, there was definitely an altercation between me and her. That was, I don't know, her boyfriend Josh was there at the time, which, God, I hope he's okay because he wound up getting into the stuff as well. But, no, there was an altercation there at the house. Tempers were roused, but no, she punched me in the dick. I remember that. And there was some destruction at...
that hurts.
Yeah, right in the balls. So, I yelled at her, but, I mean...
You didn't hit her?
No. But I know for a fact that at some point, somehow, there was a wall damaged. That was a Heather and Josh thing. And there might have been damage to a pegboard. I think I might have thrown something into a pegboard, and it broke.
Okay.
That would be Rick's brother's house. Okay. I don't know if he still lives there.
Okay. Okay, so we're kind of getting off track there. Let me ask you, February of 2011. You already know what I'm going to ask. Supposedly, you walked up to Katelyn and said you wanted to fuck her, and you started touching her. Mm-hmm. And John got pissed and threw you out of the house. Now, he could have been getting his dates wrong. Has that ever happened?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Then we're going back to the night Katelyn disappeared, August 13, 2011. He said he called you kind of frantic, asking if you could come over to his house. And he said that you got there and you were high or drunk. You had like a quart of beer or liquor with you, and you brought your guitar in, and you had new strings or something. He went on for a second about that. And then you passed out a couple of times. He had to wake you up.
That sounds like something I do.
Yeah, you passed out again. Then the mom and the girlfriend came back, and you started hitting on the mom, and you and the mom got into it. Then the girlfriend asked you to leave, and you said, "You're going to make me leave, and I'm drunk." And he said, "Well, have some coffee." So you drank some coffee, and then you left. Supposedly you went to... Have you ever been to Indiana to see Mary Holleran? Was she ever living there in that time frame?
Not that I'm aware of, and if so, I certainly never went to Indiana to see her. No, the only time I've ever been out to Indiana, other than to see my family that lives there, would be to hang out with John, at his
dad's house.
His dad owns, shoot guns and get drunk and be foolish.
Now, do you go to his dad's property, or do you go to his dad's house?
Oh, it's the property. I've never been to his dad's house, or if I have, it was probably just driving by.
Okay. Are you from Indiana?
Me and John, my brother, it's kind of hard to say where we're from, but we moved around a lot. I was born in Missouri, got a lot of family that live in Indiana, and I lived in Batesville, Indiana until I was like 7 years old.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm from everywhere, man.
Okay.
If I'm to quote Johnny Cash.
Tell me about Mary. Did you briefly see her? Did you have a sexual relationship with Mary?
No, I mean, I thought she was cute and I thought she was pretty. Like, I did have a bit of a thing for her, but I just wound up like, we never did anything physically, and I was on a lot of drugs at the time. I wound up like, she knew people that got pills and all that shit. So,
did Ricky get his pills from her? Do you know?
I doubt it. I don't know if they even were in the same circles.
Okay.
I know that at least one time while I was working at that barbershop, I know we had like done some Percocets together or something. Actually, wait a minute. At that time, he might have been living behind the mire. I don't know. But no, I think that we might have. If he did, it was through me.
There you.
It was through me. He wouldn't have had any, that I'm aware of, any personal connection with her.
Okay.
And even then, back then, I didn't even know her all that well. I still really don't. She's more of an acquaintance.
Okay. Did you have a thing for Katelyn? Did you think she was hot? Did you mention anything?
I mean, I thought she was pretty, but that's John's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't, I don't know if you've seen John.
Did you tell Ricky you wanted to fuck Katelyn?
No.
No.
I can't ever see myself saying that.
Okay. All right. But you had more like, you thought she was pretty, but that's John's girlfriend. You just kind of leave it alone with like buddies or whatever. You don't do that.
And I've known John since I was in second grade when I moved here.
Okay.
So.
All right. One more question, and then we're gonna change the focus here.
Sure.
You're at a bonfire. There are people sitting around a bonfire, kind of like a party.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, you went up behind this girl and took your dick out and put it on her head. Do you ever remember doing that?
No.
I mean, your brother said that sounds like something he would talk about, but I don't think he'd actually do it.
No, because, as I've told you, I've been punched in the dick before, and that's the kind of behavior that would warrant getting punched in the dick.
Right.
It's not. No.
Yeah. Okay. That's one of the things Ricky was saying that you did.
Well, so, I'm sure he's got a lot of interesting tales to tell.
Right. How long before Katelyn went missing had you talked to her, saw her?
I'd known Katelyn since the first day I met Katelyn. The first day I met Katelyn was the day I came back from Colorado. I'm thinking it was, God, it's been a long time. Basically, since Johnny C. met her.
Okay.
In fact, it was back when he was driving the Bronco. It could have been 2007. I don't know. She was young, very young. Maybe 15 or 16. So it's, I knew them for the entire duration of the relationship.
Okay.
Yeah. And me and Katelyn were very good, close friends as well.
When was the last time you saw her before she went missing?
So that's difficult to say. It probably might have been in passing, but nothing particularly stands out because, again, drugs are a hell of a thing, man.
Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah.
So you don't really know when you talked. Were you seeing her? Off and on, as far as maybe once a week you might see Katelyn, or?
It would have been probably by that point. I would have seen her more by extension of hanging out with John, but I was very isolated at that time.
Okay.
And had been for quite a while. Yeah. That would have been... She went missing before, my brother just, found a bag of needles in my room and pulled me aside you gotta stop this shit. So...
Yeah.
I can't give you any really clear answers as the last time I did see her, but I'm sure I saw her a couple of times, but it would have been more in passing.
Tell me about Ryan Isaacs.
That's one I don't like very much. He's pretty much... I've never had a lot of use for him. The man's always been well known to rip people off and take them advantage of others in all of his dealings, for the most part.
Have you known him to be violent?
I've never seen it. He likes to talk a lot of smack, but I've never known the man to be physically violent in the sense that, I've never seen it.
John had a...
Oh, the tires?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past him, but we can't prove it.
Okay. John Carter had an apartment at one time in 2008. I forget where it was.
Yeah, Rick got indebted to the coke dealer, and John actually still has his base.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Or at least the last I checked. But yeah, I believe you could probably still go into that basement or ask John, and he would tell you, yep, I still have that base from when that happened. And the coke dealer did steal his computer, but John had nothing to do with the cocaine because, he's...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty much always been his thing.
Yeah.
And I still remember the guy's name. His name was Landon, but he did steal his laptop, but nobody's door got kicked in. It was just a matter of somebody left the door unlocked and then the laptop was missing.
So Lance, that Ricky referred to, is Landon. During this interview, Mike also agrees to take a polygraph for me. In fact, he came back the next day and did so. Mike was asked these questions for the polygraph. Do you know what happened to Katelyn Markham the night she disappeared? Did you cause the death of Katelyn Markham? Do you have any knowledge of who caused Katelyn Markham's death? He said no to all the above. The polygraph results? No deception indicated. In this next clip, Mike and I speak about where Ricky Fields lived in Indiana in relation to Cedar Grove, Indiana, coming from Fairfield, Ohio. Every town Ricky has lived in Indiana, from Fairfield, connects through Cedar Grove.
Especially when you look at where the man has lived.
Right.
Especially in relation to the dump site
Right.
of the body. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
He has a vast familiarity with that part of Indiana.
Exactly. And if he lives in what is it, Rushville? I think he lives at...
He says he lives in, most recently he said he lived in Rushville.
Yeah.
But, he's also lived in Connorsville.
Right.
He tends to bounce back and forth.
Where is that from Cedar Grove, do you know?
On the way. It's like you could get, if you were to take, look man, the best way I can explain it, if you can get on Google Maps, put a dot on Cedar Grove, put a dot on, because I did this earlier, put a dot on Rushville and then put a dot on Connorsville. You're going to kind of look at that and be like, interesting. Just do it. You'll see what I mean.
And Mike is 100% right. It is very interesting to look at that on a map. I informed the police about Michael Palmerton 2 months before going on the second trip to Ohio. When I arrived in Ohio in late May, early June of 2015, the police claimed they couldn't get a hold of Mike to interview him. The police did indicate they were looking for Mike. After a couple of days of being in Ohio, I was able to sit down with Michael Palmerton, and as we heard earlier, he took a polygraph for me. I contacted the police. In fact, I texted them and asked if they wanted to come interview him. When the detectives showed up, they looked mad and acted very irritated to be there. So Mike asked me a question about their attitudes, And I explained why the police weren't too happy. I guess they weren't too pleased about having, I guess they've been looking for you and they knew they better come talk to you because apparently they can't find you. It was really easy for me. I mean, I don't know what the hell, but whatever.
All they had to do was call me, man.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do. So what you're saying is that you made them look bad.
Yeah, basically. And it's not the first time either, so.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I have no interest in, I mean, you can report everything that you find to the police, but right. I have no interest in speaking with the Fairfield police outside of that little interview that we had.
I can honestly say the Fairfield police detective and sergeant who was with her that day, their attitudes, they were piss poor. John Palmerton never showed up for his polygraph. Here is me talking to his brother Michael about the fact that he didn't show up, looking for possible explanations as to why. What happened to your brother yesterday? I actually got him time off work with Matt, and then I said, hey man, I need to know if you're coming because we got the polygraph examiner. You know, he has some other stuff. He kind of, canceled some stuff for us. Just let me know either way. And he just wouldn't text me back.
Did he never show up?
Never showed up, never texted me back.
Oh, man. Well, he's not answering the phone for me either because I've been trying to get a hold of him myself, so he's just being a dick. He does that.
Yeah, I mean,
just being honest with you, he's just being a dick.
Knowing the turbulent history Richard Fields and Michael Palmerton have had, it's clear, at least to me, why Rick would throw Mike in the middle of a murder investigation. Actually, there's several reasons. The first being for payback. For Mike letting Rick know how he feels about him just a couple months before Rick contacted me. The second, to take the heat off someone else. And the third, to interject himself into something he knows firsthand about so he will be known as a witness, not a suspect. These are things that people do all the time. Let's face it, Mike Palmerton has had his problems, but he complied 100% with everything I asked him to do, even passing a polygraph. Rick Fields has run from a face-to-face interview, avoided a polygraph, and lied about where he lives and where he was moving. He is avoiding all investigative efforts to prove his story is the truth. Rick Fields interjected himself into this case. As we go through some of the nation's most publicized cases, ask yourself, who are the people who interject themselves into cases that might not otherwise be acknowledged? I'm not saying I have proof that Rick Fields is guilty of anything. I can't even get him to meet with me, but the circumstances surrounding him coming forward almost 4 years later and making claims, then running when I want to interview him and lying about his whereabouts is most definitely suspicious, to say the least. Let's face it, I probably would never have heard Rick Fields' name if he didn't make the introduction. That's it for this episode. Please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Also, check out the Gone at 21 Facebook page. Until next time, I'm Jay Ryan. Take care.